So welcome to this week's Kabbalah Explained Simply. This week's topic is the Tree of Life Unlocked. Yes, we are going to unlock this concept that many people think they know, think they understand, the Tree of Life. But what is the Tree of Life? There are many misconceptions and rumors to what the Tree of Life is. Unfortunately, most are just completely wrong. And today we're going to shatter a lot of these misconceptions, and we're going to start unlocking the power and the meaning of the Tree of Life according to the wisdom of Kabbalah. While preparing this session, I actually came to a conclusion that we're going to need to have two sessions on this topic. So today's going to be part one about the Tree of Life. So I'll bring you into it instead of just giving you kind of a short, 10-minute explanation on the Tree of Life, which you won't get much of. Then I thought it would be better to bring you the background of it, what it means, where it comes from. The term the Tree of Life, then it appears in the Bible, a few mentions only. You've probably seen the symbol of the Tree of Life. I'm talking, about this very popular symbol that you've probably had associated with the Tree of Life. Actually, this is a symbol of the 10 Sefirot. So there's also a Tree of Life wiki, which you'll find a huge spectrum of philosophies, not just from Kabbalah, from all kinds of religions, and we're not going to go into that today. There's also some talk about how the Tree of Life is connected to evolution. There's even a Tree of Life game. I don't know how connected it is to the actual spiritual concept. I just know that it sparked a lot of interest in the Tree of Life, which is good. So to unlock the true meaning of Tree of Life, according to Kabbalah, then you have to study it from authentic Kabbalah sources. And that's what we're going to do in this session. Everything I bring you in this session is based on authentic Kabbalah sources. The origin of the Tree of Life, how to use it, the power it holds in it. If you want one sentence on the Tree of Life, then I can tell you one sentence from Kabbalist Dr. Michael Latman. He says, the Tree of Life means the correction of altruistic desires above the chazeh and working with egoistic desires below the chazeh with the intention to give in the entire Partzuf Adam. So that's a meaning, that's a Kabbalistic interpretation of the Tree of Life. But maybe it was unclear. Probably it was unclear. So hopefully by the end of this session, if we reread this sentence, then it will become clearer to you. So I want to start off with giving you a little bit of background. Okay, so we'll start off with a general overview of where it comes from. Let's start with that. Okay, so if you have any questions, then please post them in the chat. If they're not relevant to the session today and they're relevant for next week's session, then I'll be sure to bring them next week as well. I'll be looking at the chat now and after the session as well. So let's start off with the first known Kabbalist, the first Kabbalist there ever was. His name was Adam. You might be confused because you've heard of Adam and Eve and you've heard of the soul of Adam, of Adam. So Adam, from the story Adam and Eve, we're not talking about the spiritual forces called Adam and Chava. We're talking about a person named Adam. He wrote the first Kabbalistic book about 5,780 years ago. He was the first Kabbalist, meaning he was the first person to rise from the animate level to a speaking level, because speaking in the wisdom of Kabbalah means the degree of Adam. That's where the name comes from. He reached the degree of Adam. He wrote a book called Raziel the Angel. A lot of mysticism around this book. Actually, this is the foundation of the concept of Tree of Life. In it, he does not refer directly to the Tree of Life. He describes a system of souls and how the souls are interconnected and how they relate to each other. There are a lot of misconceptions about Raziel the Angel, Raziel Malach. Many people use it to make amulets. because he seemingly speaks of amulets there, although in the wisdom of Kabbalah there is no such thing as a physical amulet. There is no physical object, no matter what it would be, that can have any impact on the spiritual reality. Of course, he's talking about internal matters, matters of intention, since they are the only things that can change anything in reality, and no engravement on some piece of parchment or something, or a necklace or any kind of red string or anything like that, that has no impact whatsoever on the spiritual worlds. The impact is only one way. It's from the spiritual to the corporeal. The only thing that can connect you back to the spiritual is intention. That's it. We had an awesome session last week about intention. You can check it out. Maybe someone will post a link to it in the chat. I don't know. Anyway, so let's keep it going. So this was Adam. And basically this book, Raziel the Angel, it's a book that was written in code. So if you look at it and you read it, regardless that it's written in Hebrew or Aramaic or whatever, even if you know the language, you still will not be able to understand it, because it is written in code. And I'll explain a little more what that means, that it's written in code. All right, next down the line, we have Abraham, who wrote the book of creation, Sefer HaYetzirah. Now, Sefer HaYetzirah, approximately 3,800 years ago, this is the first book to take the concepts that Adam wrote in his book and break them down to a structure of 10 Sefirot. So the structure of 10 Sefirot is actually that structure of the 10, of those 10, let's call them circles for now, that you're probably familiar with, this structure over here. So Abraham, in his book Sefer Yetzirah, he was the first one to break down this structure, to present this structure, and it is groundbreaking. However, this too is written in code, meaning you can read the book, you can know Hebrew or Aramaic, it doesn't matter, you still cannot understand a single word of this book. It is written in code. It would be like, if you look at a computer now, you're looking at the screen, you can easily interpret what you're seeing in front of you. You're seeing a player, a browser, whatever. Let's do a quick experiment. So all this is clear. If I click inspect, then what I can see here, if I'm not a programmer, would be completely unclear to me. It would just be code. Although this code describes exactly what is on the screen, if you're a programmer, you can probably look at this and you can imagine perfectly this same image, right? But if you're not a programmer, then you look at this and it's meaningless. And there could even be words here, like it says here, the word tooltip. Oh, I know what a tooltip is. So does that mean that you know how tooltip is going to be represented on this page? No, it does not mean that. It also says here, true. I know the word true. True, false. I know what truth means. Does that mean that true has the same meaning that you know of it in this code? Probably not. In coding, there's Boolean parameters, true, false. So true means the parameter will exist, will take place. False means it doesn't. So this is just a nice example of what it means that it's written in code. So just like the computer screen in front of you, the output you see there, that's written in code, and you're seeing the representation. These books too are written in code. So you're probably asking, okay, cool, what's the key, right? So there is a key, and you can have the key. I'll give you the key. Well, it's not my key to give, but it's the Kabbalist key that they made it available to anyone that follows a certain, you could say, criteria. So we'll soon see if you have that criteria. You probably do if you're here. So this book too was written in code. So this is the first description, representation of this structure of the tree of life, but he doesn't mention the tree of life here yet. He doesn't give it that name. He talks about these 10 Sefirot, these 10 illuminations, and that's what he writes in the book of Yetzirah. All right, so what else do we have here? We then have Moses, about 3,200 years ago, writing the most popular and top-selling book of all times, the Bible, the Pentateuch. In it, he mentions the tree of life a few times, 3 times. Its mentioning isn't really clear because the Bible is written also in code. It's written in the language of roots and branches. Now, when I say it's written in code, all these books, it basically means that what you think you're reading is actually not what you're reading. And when I started studying Kabbalah, this made a lot of sense to me, because I grew up in a somewhat religious Jewish family, and I was raised that on the stories of the Bible and this and that, and they never made sense to me, their literal meaning of the stories. There were so many conflicts and things that just didn't make sense, and I didn't buy it. And then when I started studying Kabbalah, and I found that all of these stories represent internal forces, then by looking again at these stories, by looking at the story of Adam and Eve, the force that wants to give, and it wanted to give to the Creator, and it didn't calculate correctly, so it received the light without a correct masach, and then it shattered, and then it fell to this world. Suddenly all these stories, when they're talking about spiritual forces, there's no contradiction in them. There's no conflict. They all talk about contradicting forces inside of us. And it just gave me a totally different perspective on all of the stories of Noah's Ark, that you imagine a big ark that animals came on and off, and really we're talking about two forces, coupling forces in every person, which some are labeled as kosher, meaning they're corrected with the desire to bestow, and some are marked as non-kosher, meaning they're not corrected with the desire to bestow. So all these concepts are above religion, they're above time, they're above nationality, and they can be applied by anyone who has a desire. There I gave you already a hint about the criteria to unlock the tree of life. You need to have a desire for it. So anyway, back to Moses. So Moses wrote the Bible in the language of roots and branches, which basically means that every word that Moses writes about in this book, it actually is pointing to a spiritual object. So just like in the computer code, when it said true, I might think, okay, I know what the word true means, but really true is pointing. Actually, similarly, in computers, a parameter, like a Boolean parameter, like true and false, it points to a place in the memory, in the computer's memory. And similarly here, when these books speak of different words, even the word tree and other words, animals and etc. and the like, they're pointing to a spiritual object of a spiritual force called an animal. So it can be a cow or a person or a king or a country. All these things point to spiritual forces. All right, so let's keep it going. We got to Moses. So how is this related to the tree of life, by the way? Except for 3 mentions of the tree of life, I'll tell you a secret. This entire book talks about that same structure, those same 10 Sefirot. And so does this book, and so does this book. Okay, let's keep going. Next, down the line, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So you might know him as Rashbi. He was the Kabbalist in the cave 1800 years ago, together with his students, writing the book of Zohar. The book of Zohar basically describes the reaction that we get from above for our thoughts. So it's giving a totally new dimension to interaction with the upper force, with the spiritual light. It is still today groundbreaking in terms of its spiritual impact. It's a very, very powerful book. It was meant to be hidden until the 16th century, but by chance it was found by a student of a Kabbalist who went to the market to buy some fish, and he found the fish was wrapped in some parchment, and he opened it up and he found Aramaic letters there. He brought it to his teacher, a Kabbalist, who immediately identified what this is, and then they sent all their students to the market to scout and find all of the parchments that were left there. It's an interesting story how it kind of got found again, but we're not going to go into that now. Guess what? The Zohar too is written in code. So you could say that they're all written in code. I want to be careful to say that they're different languages. They are different languages, but maybe, it's like Java or Python or HTML. you can do similar. It's not a completely accurate example, and it probably doesn't make sense to those of you who don't know computers or computer languages. But those are just names of different computer languages, which ultimately, in most of them, you can achieve similar things through different kinds of words and symbols and codes. So you could say similarly here, somewhat similarly here. These different books are written in different kinds of codes. There are 4 codes in Kabbalah. Pshat, Remez, Drush, Sod. We won't go into that now, but they all refer to the same thing. They all refer to a single structure that covers all of reality. The structure can be described as Havaya, and it can be described as the 10 Sefirot, which is the tree of life. Alright, so let's keep going. This is what Baal HaSulam, a prominent Kabbalist of the 20th century, wrote. First, you must know that all that is said in the book of Zohar, and even in its legends, is denominations of the 10 Sefirot, called Kachab, Keter, Chochma, Bina, Chagat, which is Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Nihim, which is Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut, and their permutations. Just as the 22 letters of the spoken language, whose permutations suffice to uncover every object and every concept, the concepts and permutations of concepts in the 10 Sefirot suffice to disclose all the wisdom in the book of heaven. So as you can see, the Zohar too simply describes in a different language the same structure, this tree of life. Alright, moving forward. So the Ari, author of the book Etz Chaim, which coined this term Tree of Life. That's the name of his book, Tree of Life. That's where this name came from. Etz Chaim, that's a literal translation from Hebrew. Etz means tree and Chaim means life. This is this image, this structure that's most associated with the name Tree of Life. The Ari lived in the 16th century, and his work was also revolutionary because that was the first time that this system was suited for the masses. Until the Ari, this entire wisdom, it was completely concealed from humanity simply because humanity's growing desire wasn't evolved enough. Now, from the time of the Ari, it was the beginning of a new era, an era where it's the beginning of the end, you can say, of the end of the ripening of the will to receive. We can see that in the last 400 or 500 years, then there's been a huge evolution of the will to receive, and that's why followed the Ari. There was another Kabbalist who brought the method even closer to humanity, but it was the first time that the method was written and made in a way that anyone that has a desire will be able to start reading it and attain what's written in it. Not necessarily understand it, maybe understand too, but mainly to attain what's written. Because in Kabbalah speaks only of attainment, not of understanding or intellect or belief, nothing like that. In order to truly understand what Kabbalah speak of, you have to attain the level that they wrote to you from. So basically the Ari, in his book Etz Chaim, he put the laws of creation into a clear scientific system, and that started the last phase of human development. And following the Ari, we have Baal HaSulam, who again took this same structure. Baal HaSulam lived 1884 to 1954, so he died about 70 years ago. He wrote the book, The Study of the 10 Sefirot. It's a 2,000-page book. Well, in English, it's actually more. It's probably like 3,000 or something. Basically, this book is his commentary on the Ari's Tree of Life. So he takes the same writings of the Ari, the Tree of Life, and he breaks them down and breaks them down and breaks them down. And that's why his name is actually Rav Yehuda Ashlag. But he's also known as Baal HaSulam because Sulam in Hebrew means ladder, and he's named Baal HaSulam because he formed the ladder to spirituality. So that anyone that wants to attain spirituality today, in our day, can do that simply through climbing the ladder, the method of Bala Sulam. So he was a great Kabbalist. He wrote also similar interpretation to the book of Zohar and to many other books, but probably he's most well known for his interpretations of Etz Chaim, the study of the 10 Sefirot, and the interpretations of the Zohar, of Rashbi. So let's do a quick recap. So we have Adam, Abraham, Rashbi, Ari, and Bala Sulam, each of them talking on different layers of the same 10 Sefirot, of the same tree of life. Coincidence? No, it's not a coincidence. And this next slide might blow your mind. It did blow my mind when I heard this first. These 5 different Kabbalists, they're the same soul incarnated from Adam to Abraham, to Rashbi, to the Ari, to Bala Sulam. It's a single soul. It's the same soul that every time took the method, this tree of life, this 10 Sefirot, and it made it more and more and more accessible. Right? So it all talks of the same thing. But if you open Adam's book Raziel Malach, or if you open Abraham's book of creation, maybe let's do that. Let's take a look for a second at the book of creation. It'll be fun. Let's take a quick read into it. Let's see if I can find it in like 10 seconds, and if I can, then we'll do it. There we go, I found it. Great. So the book of creation. You ready? You want to read the book of creation? Let's take a look at it. Why not? It's on our website. You can see it here. I think this is as big as a text can go. Even if you can't properly see it, I'll read it out. So there are a few parts in the book of creation, Sefira HaYetzirah. Let's just start reading it. The divine force established its rule, might, eternity, and unity through 32 secret paths of the descending upper light, and concealed itself in 3 categories: the book, the storyteller, and the story. 10 Sefirot of concealment of the divine force manifest in 22 principal properties, 3 root forces, 7 doubles, and 12 simple ones. 3. 10 Sefirot of concealment correspond to the 10 fingers. 5 against 5, they act in unison as a union between them acts through the power word of revelation and the power word of concealment. 10 Sefirot of concealment, 10 and not 9, 10 and not 11. Comprehend this by attaining the higher wisdom and be wise with understanding. Analyze and probe them, synthesize and summarize them. Return and disassemble parts to their place in the divinity. Let's jump ahead a little bit. He made the 22nd sign in the seed and bound it to Keter. He combined one with another and had with them he created Jupiter in the world, the 7th day in the year, the mount in the soul, male and female. 7 doubles, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Pei, Resh, and Tav, engraved with them are 7 words, worlds, firmaments, earths and seas, 7 rivers, deserts, days and weeks, 7 years, 7-year periods, 50-year periods in the central chamber of the temple. Alright, so that was the book of creation. It speaks of the most exalted matters, this book. It speaks of the higher spiritual reality. However, it's, as I said, written in code. It's very, very difficult to understand a single word that he says there. And even the words that you seemingly think you understand, which was an interesting example when I pulled open the computer code, the same thing. I see words there, I think I know them, but really in computer language, in code, they refer to different things. So it's the same thing here. He said deserts, fingers. Is he talking about the 5 fingers of the hands? No, he's talking about a spiritual structure, spiritual forces, and the word finger is used to describe a spiritual force. It's true that everything in our world, as a law of root and branch, it all stems from its root. So our fingers, they're called fingers, and they stem from something spiritual, a spiritual object, which is called a finger. Right? And the Kabbalah speak of the spiritual objects, not of the corporeal matters. So that's why it's really confusing, by the way, and that's why there are so many misinterpretations and mysticisms around this, and people start making amulets, and they start thinking that they have some kind of sacred forces in their fingers. You get why, because they read about it and they say, yeah, he's talking about my fingers, that they have some spiritual force in them. No, not at all. And this is a huge misconception, and I'd say 99% of the materials out there on the Tree of Life, which relate, you see images of connecting like the heaven and the earth and all kinds of things that are completely corporealizing and materializing something that's spiritual completely. Okay, so what is the difference between, say, Abraham, who wrote this, and then Rashbi and Ari? So basically, what you can say is that they're all talking about the same thing. This is just a drawing of someone. It's not one of those Kabbalists. It's talking about the same thing, but it's on different levels of detail. Right? So this image here, you can see a drawing of a man. Now, this is the same drawing, but there's more details to it. Now, you can't say the first one describes in quality something different. No, it describes the exact same thing. But it has more details of it, of that same object. And you can have more details even, and then you can add more details. This is, by the way, from a book called The Practice of Science of Drawing by Harold Speed. So in it you can see a very nice kind of flow of how you can have the same object, but you can just add more and more details to it. So that's what that same very special soul, which ran through, as we said, Adam, Abraham, Rashbi, Ari, Bala, Sulam. Every time this soul reincarnated, and it came at a time where the collective human desire was more and more evolved, and as a result of that, you could say it was ripened to receive more details, even though it wasn't yet ready. So these things were written but concealed. The general collective desire that was like in the air, quote unquote, it enabled Kabbalists to elaborate and write more and more details, until Bala Sulam, who wrote in complete detail, as detailed as you can, everything, and he wrote 4 introductions to the study of Kabbalah. We cover them in some of our videos. And he explains the approach to the wisdom, and he said a lot of the things that I'm saying now are based on these introductions, that there's no, that you shouldn't corporealize these readings, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so let's continue to the next part of this session. It's understanding the Tree of Life. But before I do, I want to read a poem, which is the opening of the book Etz Chaim, the Tree of Life by the Ari. I was actually going to show you a video of that poem, but unfortunately the sound is not working, so I'll instead, we'll read it together, and I'll just find it again on our site. I'm sure I can find it in under 10 seconds. There, I found it. Okay. So here it is. Let's read it together. So it starts like this. Behold. So this is, again, just in case you weren't following, we're reading the opening of the book, The Tree of Life. This is written by the Ari. It starts off with a poem. Don't be confused by the name. It's powerful, spiritual, in-depth meaning of the entire reality. Again, when we're reading it together, try and not to corporealize what we're reading. Instead, see if you can... Oops, wait a minute. Lost it. Let me just open that up again. Where is it? Okay, here it is. So when we're reading it together, try and not corporealize it, or try not interpret it in, as materialistic matter, but instead just try and connect to the words of the Ari, of where he wrote them from, what he intended when he wrote these words. So here we go. Behold that before the emanations were emanated and the creatures were created, the upper simple light had filled the whole existence. And there was no vacancy, such as an empty air, a hollow, but all was filled with that simple, boundless light. And there was no such part as head or end, but everything was one simple light, balanced evenly and equally. And it was called the light of Ein Sof. And when upon his simple will came the desire to create the worlds and emanate the emanations, to bring to light the perfection of his deeds, his names, his appellations, which was the cause of the creation of the worlds. Then Ein Sof restricted himself in his middle point, precisely at the center. And he restricted that light and drew far off to the sides around that middle point. And there remained an empty space, an empty air, a vacuum, precisely from the middle point. And that restriction was equally around that empty middle point, so that the space was evenly circled around it. And after the restriction, when the vacant space remained empty, precisely in the middle of the light of Ein Sof, a place was formed, where the emanations, creations, formations, and actions might reside. And then from the light of Ein Sof, a single line hung down from above, lowered into that space. And through that line, he emanated, he created, formed, and made all the worlds. Prior to these four worlds, there was one light of Ein Sof, whose name is one, in wondrous hidden unity. And even in the angels closest to him, there is no force and no attainment in the Ein Sof. And there is no mind of a created that could attain him, for he has no place, no boundary, and no name. The Ari, Tree of Life, Part 1, Gate 1. So, even though it's unclear exactly what he writes about, I personally find it inspiring, and just to try even to connect to what he's writing about, this world of light, this state of perfection that he attained. He's not writing out of some imagination. He's not a blind person trying to write about what a color is without seeing the color. No, he's writing from his pure spiritual attainment. And I think it is very, very powerful to connect to that. Okay, so let's continue. So let's continue in this session. So I want to continue to understanding the Tree of Life. So we gave an introduction. We understand that all of the Kabbalists, from Adam to Abraham, Moses, Rashbi, Ari, Bella, Sulam, and all the other Kabbalists around, they all talk about this same structure. And why is that? Let's take a look. So, understanding the Tree of Life. So let's start off with understanding what a Sefira is. Because if we know that the Tree of Life are 10 Sefirot, this structure, so they're built of 10 Sefirot. So the first question is, what is a Sefira? A Sefira. So in Hebrew, the word Sefira, it comes from the word sapphire, luminous, basically shining, lighting. And what every Sefira is, it's a corrected state. So what does it mean, corrected? Corrected means it has a masach on it, on that state, and it can receive the light with the intention in order to bestow. So every Sefira is a corrected state that illuminates with light. That's why they're called Sefirot. So let's take a look a bit at the structure of the Tree of Life. So this is the structure. I'm sure you've seen this in a million places. There are horrible images of this online that are placed on human bodies and on corporeal matters. The reason why I'm saying it's horrible, because there is nothing worse than corporealizing such sublime spiritual objects. This structure is the highest, most powerful structure in all of reality, and placing it on some kind of human body and saying this is Keter and this is this and this is that, that is complete misinterpretation of what this structure is. So it doesn't speak, like I said, a single word about this world at all. It speaks only of a spiritual structure. That's all it speaks of. Every one of these Sefirot, then they represent something. Sorry, my presentation here. There we go. Okay. Every single one of us we all have this Tree of Life within us. We all have this structure. Everyone. Every person on the planet, and actually everything in reality has this structure of the 10 Sefirot. However, it's currently built as a seed. All it is a tiny drop. That's all we have inside of us. This drop in Kabbalah is also referred to as a point in the heart, meaning it's a spiritual point in a heart, in a collection of corporeal desires. And this point holds in it the potential to develop into something, into an entire structure. But just like DNA, it holds in it its future states. The information is all there. So it's the same here. This point that every one of you has inside, it's the DNA of this spiritual structure, of the 10 Sefirot. Each Sefira, like I said, has its own quality, and our egoistic desire is called the Sefira of Malchut. So that's this Sefira down here. Now, attaining this Sefira of Malchut, first of all, is a black body. It's like a black point. So the Malchut, it's like a black box. So you know what the color black is, really, like my black t-shirt. What it really is, it's lack of color. That's what it is. There is no such thing as a color black. All it is lack of light. Because if I'm looking at something, say, I don't know, orange, then what it means is that the light hits this, and the color that it rejects, or which is what it reflects, is a wavelength suitable to what we interpret as orange. And the color black, it basically doesn't reflect anything off it. So the color black, it absorbs all the light completely. So like in corporeality, the color black, there is no absolute black, by the way, because if you look at absolute black, you won't see anything. You will see like a void, like something that's just like a black hole. So there is no absolute black, because even if you're looking at something black, like this math, for example, I'm looking at it, the light reflects off it, so it's not pure black. If this were pure black, I wouldn't see it. I would just see like this void in space. So Malchut is that. It's pure black. It's a void that absorbs all the light into it, and actually the entire correction of this structure is correction through the Malchut. Through the Malchut to its upper 9. So this is considered the Malchut. You probably can't see my cursor. There you go. Now you can. Okay, so this is the Malchut, and these are the upper 9. And basically, the correction of this entire structure starts with the correcting of the Malchut and attaining the upper 9 through a system called a masach. So what's a masach? A masach is basically just like it's awesome because it fits into all levels of understanding reality, from the most corporeal to the most spiritual. So like we said here, that the color it's a rejection, really. So this substance, it absorbs all colors except for orange. That's why we see orange, because orange is what is reflected, right? And this pencil here is blue, and it rejects everything except for the color blue, etc. And this is similar to the mechanism, is similar to the spiritual masach. So a masach, it rejects the light that it cannot receive in order to bestow, and having a masach already, by the way, that's already a spiritual correction. Because if you have a masach, it means that you already have attainment of this structure on a certain level. And advancement in spirituality means reattaining this structure over and over again to its fullest measure, like adding more details to it, more depth. Maybe like that painting example that the stages, but it's even more than that, you could say. It's more like, I guess that's probably the best example I have now. It's like drawing a picture, and then it's kind of dark, so you draw according to what you can see, and then you turn up the light a little bit, and then you can see more. So now, because you can see more, you can also add more details. So you add more details, and then you have the same picture but with more details, and then you turn up the light a little more, and then it shines a little more, and you can see more, you can see what's missing, and then you can add a little more, etc. So this is all it is. It's that single structure, this tree of life, of everything in reality, of every thought you have, of everything on the still, vegetative, animate, and speaking. It all stems from this connection between the Malchut and its upper 9 Sefirot, and that's why this structure is so famous and popular, because it's also associated with colors, because in spirituality there is a color for every one of these Sefirot. But again, it's really important not to confuse this and think that the color green or the color red or the color black, that they have some spiritual force in them. And that's another misconception, that people read in the Zohar or wherever that this Sefira is associated with this color, and then they think that this color has spiritual force because it's associated with the Sefira. No, that is incorrect. The forces in it are still forces. They're meaningless. It's like, I don't know, in physics, maybe it's a bad example, but I'll say it anyway because it's the only one that came up to mind now, that when you measure the forces on an electron, then an electron has electric forces on it, and it also has gravitational forces. But the gravitational forces are so weak in comparison to the electric forces that you can just neglect them because they're meaningless. It's like 1 to a million, a millionth. So the millionth is negligent in comparison. If you have $100, then what's a millionth of a cent? It's meaningless. So similarly here, there are forces on the still level that stem from spirituality, but they're negligent. The most powerful force, and the only one that you should be focusing on if you want to unlock this structure, is changing your intention. And how to change the intention, there is an entire method, the wisdom of Kabbalah, of how to do that. We actually try to simplify it and bring it in different courses on Kabbalahinfo. So there's also a course related to this topic on Kabbalahinfo, and there are other courses as well. And we're even launching a new upgrade, a huge upgrade of Kabbalahinfo in the very near future, which is really exciting, where you'll be able to find many courses on different topics, including the Tree of Life and other fundamentals on Kabbalah, but really most importantly, how to build this structure yourself, because that's probably what you're here for. If you're here for intellect because you're doing some thesis on the study of the 10 Sefirot, then that's fine, but you probably won't stick around long here. if you're here because you feel that this structure has some kind of something in it, then you're right, it does. And all these things associated with it, these angels and celestial beings, they all exist, they're all true, but they're just not corporeal forces. It's not something with wings flying in the sky that I can't see. No, it's a force that pushes, drives towards spiritual evolution, that drives towards spiritual development. And each and every one of you can connect to these angels and celestial beings, as you want to, if you want to call it that. All of these are simply spiritual forces that help you correct your egoistic desire called Malchut and connect to the upper nine, which is a system, and build a masach for it. So I think that's it. Unfortunately, it was a content-packed session today. So, and to be honest, I didn't know how to look at the questions while I had the presentation running, which I usually have it on this screen over here, but today I opened a presentation on this screen and I couldn't see your questions, so I apologize. But I will be looking at the questions, and I will bring the relevant ones to next week's session. I'll actually use it to refine next week's session. So how are we going to continue this session? I know that maybe you wanted to go more into the tree of life and what is it and what is Malchut and Keter and Bina and Chochmah and all those, and we will go into that. But it's important to go into it correctly with the correct approach. Otherwise, you'll get nothing than just information. And I'm sure that's not why you're here, or that's not only why you're here. If you're here for information, that's also great. But there is much, much more that you can achieve from this structure. So that's why this introduction today is essential before you start studying the tree of life, or these 10 Sefirot. So in the next session, we'll go more into the actual structure. We'll learn about the connection between Malchut and the other 9 Sefirot. We'll also talk about the name, the tree of life. Why is it called a tree? What's so special about a tree? So there is an interpretation to that and a reason behind that, and it's really interesting. And that's what we will do next week. And until then, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, then please click the like button and click the share button, because when you do that, it signals to Facebook and YouTube that you like the session, and maybe other people will like it as well. So that will be really helpful. So I'm Gil Shir, and this is Kabbalah Explained Simply. Hopefully today you started getting the key to unlock the tree of life, and we will continue next week on this topic. So I'll be really happy to see you again next week. And that's it for today. So thank you all very much. See you later.